Joni and I and the Daystar singers
Joni y yo y los cantantes de Daystar
are in Miami, Florida
estamos en Miami, Florida,
at the great King Jesus Ministries Church. God, there must be more. More, Lord. More of your presence, more of your power, more of your glory in my life.
From the outside, they looked like the picture of faith, family, and success. Marcus and Joni Lamb built one of the world's largest Christian television networks, inspiring millions with a message of hope. But behind the cameras, another story may have been unfolding. Now, Jonathan Lamb has publicly spoken in a way that is forcing supporters and critics alike to re-examine the family's legacy. His comments have sparked fresh debate about leadership, loyalty, and the future of Daystar. Is this simply a grieving son's perspective, or has he opened the door to questions that can no longer be ignored? The deeper we dig into the Lamb family story, the more surprising the unanswered questions become. See this with your own eyes. Drop where you're watching from below and stick around with us. There's a lot more coming that you won't want to miss. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Let's continue. Long before questions surrounded the Lamb family, Marcus Lamb was known for something very different, a bold dream. Born in Georgia in 1957, he felt called to preach at a young age. While many ministers focused on reaching one church at a time, Marcus believed television could carry the gospel into millions of homes. It was an ambitious vision that would shape the rest of his life. That vision grew even stronger after he met Joni Trammell. Sharing the same passion for ministry, they married in 1984 and became partners both in life and in their mission. Together, they saw an opportunity that few others imagined. Instead of relying only on traditional churches, they invested in Christian broadcasting, convinced that media could reach people far beyond a single congregation. Their efforts eventually led to the creation of Daystar Television Network. What started as a small ministry expanded into one of the world's largest Christian television networks, broadcasting programs to audiences across dozens of countries. Marcus became known as a passionate preacher, while Joni emerged as a gifted communicator and business leader. Together, they built a ministry that inspired millions and influenced Christian media for decades. To supporters, the Lambs represented faith, perseverance, and unity. Their marriage appeared strong, their ministry continued to grow, and Daystar became a trusted source of teaching and encouragement for countless families. Behind every broadcast was the image of a couple working side by side toward a shared purpose. Yet history has a way of revealing that public success does not always tell the whole story. As Daystar expanded, so did the pressures that came with leading a global ministry. Few people realized that years later, events inside the family would begin to test the very foundation on which that ministry had been built. And when the first public crack finally appeared, it would change the way many people viewed the Lamb family's carefully built legacy forever. For years, Marcus and Joni Lamb appeared to have everything. Their ministry continued to grow, their television network reached millions, and they were often seen as an example of faith overcoming life's challenges. To viewers, they represented stability in a world filled with uncertainty. But in 2010, that carefully built image faced its first major test. Marcus publicly admitted that he had been unfaithful in his marriage. The confession shocked supporters who had looked to the couple as role models. It was one of the most difficult moments in Daystar's history, and many wondered whether the ministry or the marriage could survive. Instead of separating, Marcus and Joni stood together before their audience. They spoke openly about forgiveness, healing, and their decision to rebuild their marriage. To many supporters, it became a powerful testimony of redemption. The public saw a family choosing restoration over division, and for a time, it appeared the crisis had passed. But was that really the end of the story? Looking back today, some observers believe the affair marked more than a personal failure. They see it as the moment when deeper pressures inside the family and ministry began to surface. While there is no public evidence proving what happened behind closed doors, Jonathan Lamb's later comments suggest that some of the struggles within the family did not end with that public reconciliation. Instead, according to his perspective, some tensions may have continued long after the cameras stopped rolling. If that is true, it raises another question. How much of the family's private life remained hidden while Daystar continued to project an image of unity to the world? That question becomes even more significant when we examine Jonathan Lamb's own journey. Unlike an outside critic, he wasn't watching events unfold from a distance. He was living them from inside the very ministry his parents had built. And according to Jonathan, what he experienced would eventually compel him to break years of public silence. For years, Jonathan Lamb remained largely out of the public spotlight. As the son of Marcus and Joni Lamb, he had spent much of his life inside the ministry his parents built. He wasn't simply watching Daystar grow, he was part of its story. That is one reason his recent public comments have drawn so much attention. They come from someone who witnessed the ministry's rise from the inside. When Jonathan finally chose to speak, many people immediately asked the same question: why now? After years of relative silence, why revisit painful family memories? Jonathan has described his comments as an effort to tell his side of the story, particularly regarding his father, family relationships, and events surrounding Daystar's leadership. His statements quickly spread across Christian media, prompting supporters and critics alike to revisit a chapter many believed had already been closed. It is important to separate documented facts from personal testimony. It is publicly known that Jonathan has spoken about his experiences and expressed disagreements with the direction of the ministry after Marcus Lamb's passing. However, many of his descriptions of private family dynamics represent his personal account and have not been independently verified. Likewise, Daystar and Joni Lamb have presented their own public perspective on the ministry's leadership and future. Those different accounts have created two competing narratives. One focuses on continuity and preserving Marcus's legacy. The other raises questions about leadership, transparency, and decisions made behind the scenes. As these narratives continue to unfold, supporters are left trying to understand where the truth lies. But Jonathan's comments did more than reopen old family wounds. They reignited a much bigger debate. The conversation was no longer just about one interview. It was about who would define Marcus Lamb's legacy and whether the future of Daystar would be shaped by unity or by division. Marcus Lamb's passing in 2021 marked more than the loss of a well-known Christian broadcaster. It also marked a new chapter for Daystar, one that would bring leadership, succession, and family relationships under a microscope. Almost immediately, Joni Lamb stepped forward to continue leading the network she had helped build from the very beginning. For many supporters, that transition seemed both natural and necessary. As Daystar's co-founder, she had spent decades helping shape its vision alongside Marcus. But inside and outside the ministry, not everyone viewed the transition the same way. Jonathan Lamb's public comments introduced a different perspective. He has described disagreements over leadership, decision-making, and the direction of the ministry after his father's death. Those statements fueled renewed discussion about what was happening behind the scenes and whether the leadership transition had been as united as it appeared. While Jonathan's account reflects his own experience, Daystar has continued presenting itself focused on its mission and ongoing ministry. The conversation soon grew larger than one family disagreement. It became part of a broader question that many ministries eventually face. What happens when a founder is gone? Across religious organizations, leadership succession can be one of the most difficult moments in an institution's history. Balancing family relationships, organizational stability, board oversight, and public confidence is rarely simple, especially when millions of viewers are watching. As Christian media covered Jonathan's remarks, reactions became increasingly divided. Some believed his willingness to speak demonstrated a desire for greater transparency. Others argued that private family disagreements should remain private to protect the ministry's witness. The result was a growing debate over loyalty, accountability, and legacy. Yet, even as opinions differed, one question continued to overshadow every discussion. If the disagreements over leadership were this significant, what did they reveal about Marcus Lamb's final months, and why did those final days remain the most closely examined chapter in the family's story? By late 2021, Marcus Lamb's health had become a matter of growing concern. In November of that year, Daystar announced that he had been hospitalized after contracting COVID-19. Despite updates asking supporters for prayer, the news took a heartbreaking turn. On November 30, 2021, Marcus Lamb passed away. His death was officially attributed to complications from COVID-19, and tributes quickly poured in from Christian leaders and viewers around the world. For many, that should have been the end of the story. A respected minister had been honored, his family was grieving, and Daystar pledged to continue the work he had started. But over time, the conversation began to shift. As Jonathan Lamb later shared his perspective, new questions emerged, not necessarily about the official cause of Marcus's death, but about the events surrounding his final months, family relationships, and how decisions were made during that difficult period. Jonathan has suggested that there were important details about the family's internal struggles that the public never saw. Those remarks have fueled ongoing discussion, even though many of the underlying claims remain disputed and have not been independently verified. At the same time, Joni Lamb has consistently honored Marcus's memory in public, speaking about his life, ministry, and the vision they built together. Daystar has continued broadcasting, emphasizing continuity and its mission to reach audiences worldwide. These two public narratives, Jonathan's personal account and Daystar's official position, have left many observers trying to understand where they overlap and where they differ. Perhaps the biggest mystery isn't how Marcus Lamb died, the official record addresses that, but how his legacy will ultimately be remembered. Will history focus on the extraordinary ministry he helped build, the painful family disagreements that followed, or some combination of both? And as that debate continues, an even larger question is beginning to take shape. What does this controversy mean for Daystar's future, and can the ministry move forward while its past is still being publicly debated?